Hey, how's it going, guys? Bitcoin has been pretty quiet and consolidating for more than 2 years since the big crash back in 2018. But in the past 2 months, we're seeing Bitcoin has been a pretty strong uptrending momentum, especially after more and more institutional investors like Paul Tudor Jones have publicly accepted Bitcoin as an important part of their portfolio against the massive money supply. And that finally drives Bitcoin to break out of the $10,000 mark last week and continue trending up. Will this be the beginning of the next major Bitcoin bull run that we all have been waiting for? In this video, I will share with you guys the top 3 reasons why I believe we might be at the start of the next major Bitcoin bull market, and also including my price target for the next 2 years. If you are into Bitcoin, I'm sure you will find a lot of valuable information in this video, so please make sure you watch the video to the end and do not miss out anything. I promise you I'll make it quick and don't waste your time. Alright, let's get started. Before we start, I just want to make a quick disclaimer here. I understand that Bitcoin is one of those extremely polarizing asset classes to talk about. People who believe it think it's worth millions of dollars and eventually will change the world. On the other hand, people who don't believe in Bitcoin think it's a fraud and eventually it will go to zero. I do not belong to any one of these two groups. I am an investor of many different asset classes, and I am here to look for the most profitable asset class to let my money work for me. I believe you guys are here to make some money from Bitcoin too. There are a lot of discussions around Bitcoin, but they mainly fall into one of these 3 major areas. The technological part, things like the blockchain technology. The social part, things like how people can build an ecosystem in our society that can adopt Bitcoin. And finally, the financial part, which is mainly about how the macro factors in our financial market that impact the Bitcoin price. Although I'm very interested in the technology behind Bitcoin and as well as the potential ecosystem built around Bitcoin, I'm not an expert in these 2 areas. My expertise is in the finance. So in this video, all of my analysis will be purely focused on the financial aspect of Bitcoin. Alright, so the first reason why Bitcoin will most likely start the next major bull run is this amazingly powerful pattern of Bitcoin halving cycles. Halving is one of Bitcoin's pre-programmed features that reduce the supply of Bitcoin to half every couple of years. When Bitcoin was officially launched in January 2009, there was 50 new Bitcoins created every 10 minutes. That was the first Bitcoin cycle. The second cycle started in November 2012 when the first halving occurred, then followed by the cycle number 3 when the second halving occurred in July 2016. As we can see from this chart, all these 3 cycles follow exactly the same pattern. It starts with a huge rally, then a big crash, and finally a long consolidation waiting for the next halving cycle to start. Here's the more detailed explanation to help you guys understand this halving cycle better, which is extremely important to Bitcoin's price. First, after a Bitcoin halving event occurs, money starts to slowly flow into the reduced supply of Bitcoin. Price slowly goes up due to the more restricted supply. Next, after a substantial amount of price increase, those momentum speculators will get on board and push the price higher. And then, as the price keeps going up, the FOMO crowds start joining the Bitcoin bull run, chasing the price, pushing the price much higher, and that causes a bubble. And finally, when the price goes too high, the bubble pops. Bitcoin crashes and enters a bear market, and then starts consolidating for the next cycle to start. So this is how each cycle looks like. We have seen such cycles play out perfectly 3 times in the past 10 years since the Bitcoin inception. And right now, we're at the beginning of the next halving cycle. The most recent halving was in May this year, after Bitcoin consolidated for 2 years. You guys probably want to ask, how exactly will Bitcoin perform in the next halving cycle? The best way to answer this question is to study the past. I have studied all the previous 3 cycles, and here are some of the most important highlights that can help you have a much better picture on how each cycle affects Bitcoin's price levels. Cycle number 1, the inception cycle. This is when Bitcoin was officially created. There were 50 new Bitcoins mined every 10 minutes. It started in January 2009 and it reached the peak price after 2 years in January 2011. The peak was around $20. Basically, Bitcoin went from $0 to $20 in 2 years' time. Cycle number 2, the new Bitcoins created per 10 minutes was cut into half due to the first halving. It started in November 2012 when the first halving occurred and it reached the peak price in December 2013 after 13 months. The price at the peak was around $1,000. If we compare the peak-to-peak price ratio with the previous cycle, it was a 50x increase or a 5,000% return. Cycle number 3. This is the cycle I believe most of you guys are familiar with. 12.5 new Bitcoins were created every 10 minutes during this cycle. It started in July 2016 when the second halving occurred, and it reached a peak at $20,000 in December 2017. That is also the all-time high for Bitcoin so far. If we compare the peak-to-peak price ratio, it was a 20x increase or a 2000% return from the previous peak. And now we're at the beginning of the cycle number 4, after the most recent halving occurred in May 2020. Currently, there are only 6.25 new Bitcoins that can be created every 10 minutes. Even if the peak-to-peak return for the new halving cycle is just 5x, that would take Bitcoin price to $100,000 in 2 years. We can also look at another chart to confirm this price target, and this is probably my favorite chart on Bitcoin. On the x-axis, we have the Bitcoin timeline since the inception. On the y-axis, we have the ratio between the Bitcoin price and the price on the halving date. The different color codes represents the different numbers of new Bitcoin blocks since the halving starts in each cycle. This chart can help us visualize how Bitcoin price changes along with the new number of Bitcoins created in each cycle. Also, this chart can help us compare how the price changes between each cycle. This is a brilliant chart to tell the story of Bitcoin. The creator of this chart is a Dutch institutional investor called Plan B. You guys can find him on Twitter. He has some really amazing high-quality research studies on Bitcoin. From this chart, we can have two clear conclusions. First conclusion, this chart confirms the Bitcoin price appears to strictly follow exactly the same pattern which we just talked about earlier. The second conclusion, due to the size of Bitcoin market cap and also the price of Bitcoin increases higher and higher after each cycle, each halving cycle becomes less explosive compared with the previous one. But this is only from the Bitcoin price to price of the halving ratio perspective. If we look at the absolute amount of price increase, it becomes exponentially larger and grows significantly higher after each cycle. In our current cycle, the price on the halving date was around $9,000, which was very high. Based on this chart, it suggests our current cycle's peak price to price of the halving ratio could easily hit 10 to 12, and that would take Bitcoin price to around $90,000 to $108,000, which matches our previous estimate perfectly. Alright, so this powerful Bitcoin halving cycle is my reason number 1 why Bitcoin is ready for the next major bull run. Everything we have discussed so far about Bitcoin is priced in the dollars. A lot of people like to compare Bitcoin with gold, but I rarely see people to analyze Bitcoin that is actually priced in gold. So I did some analysis on how Bitcoin performed not only in terms of dollars, but also in terms of gold, and I found something really interesting and very bullish. This is the chart of Bitcoin priced in a gram of gold from July 2010 to July 2020, exactly 10 years. The red line is the long-term support for Bitcoin, where the green line is the long-term resistance. Bitcoin has been trending up nicely within this channel for the past 10 years. Whenever the Bitcoin price touches the support, we can expect a major bull run in the next 2 years. Whenever it touches the resistance, Bitcoin will crash immediately. If we highlight the 3 halving days and the 3 peak prices, we can also see that the halving cycle we just talked about earlier also plays out perfectly in this chart when Bitcoin is priced in gold. Right now, in the middle of 2020, we just touched the support level of this long-term channel, and that could potentially mean Bitcoin will try to retest the upper resistance in the next 2 years. From the first pick to the second pick, that was 48x return. From the second pick to the third pick, that was 17x return. Then based on the history, the next pick can easily take Bitcoin to around the 1500 to 2000 in grams of gold. That translates into a range of $100,000 to $150,000 price levels, which also matches our previous price target in dollars. If the gold price also goes up, which I strongly believe it will, then that will make the Bitcoin price even more attractive. So when Bitcoin is priced in gold and analyze its price movement relative to gold price, we can also draw the same conclusion that Bitcoin is most likely in the early stage of a major bull run, and this bull run will eventually take Bitcoin to the 6-figure territory. If you think a $100,000 Bitcoin sounds too crazy, let me do a simple math for you to show you that a 6-figure Bitcoin is actually not that crazy. Let's say by 2022, the Bitcoin price hit $100,000, and the amount of Bitcoin available will be estimated around 19 million coins by that time. So the total market cap for the entire Bitcoin market is only $1.9 trillion. I won't be surprised at all if Apple or Microsoft hit a $1.9 trillion market cap by 2022. So that means the entire Bitcoin market is just one single large cap tech company's market cap, which is still very small. Less than 1% of the entire global capital market, less than 20% of the entire gold market cap, which is around $10 trillion right now. Especially when there are more and more institutional investors like Paul Tudor Jones are flooding money into Bitcoin, a unique asset class that is less than 1% of the entire capital market is considered very, very underrated and very underowned. Talking about crazy, what is truly crazy though is the speed and the scale of the money supply by the central banks around the world this year. The amount of money injected into the economy this year is equivalent to the total amount of money we printed in the entire history combined. And that is just the beginning. We will see more and more money supply to stimulate the economy for the remaining decade of 2020s. Right now, we're at the beginning of a long, painful lost decade and a massive market regime shift. With zero interest rate, negative real rate, less than 1% yield on the US Treasuries, 70% of the international bonds are paying a negative rate, massive money supply is devaluing currencies everywhere around the world, and the stock market is near the all-time high at the worst economy since the 1930s. Investors around the world will be desperate to look for new ways to make money because the old ways that made money 10-20 years ago are no longer profitable in the new decade. One of the most profound things I learned from Paul Tudor Jones is that the key to succeed in the world of investing is to start looking at the entire financial market as a huge flowchart for capitals. Right now, there are way much more capitals available than ever before as helicopter money is everywhere. Even just 1% of those new capital flows into Bitcoin, that will be a huge game changer. Remember, Bitcoin cannot be recreated, and there will be only 19 million units available by 2022. And that suddenly makes a 6-digit Bitcoin looks completely reasonable or even cheap. So from the Bitcoin price in gold perspective, plus the entire macro environment that we're in right now, all the facts are suggesting us that we're most likely going to see another major Bitcoin bull run in the coming 2 years. If the first two reasons are more on the Bitcoin's fundamentals, then the third reason I'm about to share with you is the pure technical analysis. In fact, I talked about this in the last week's market update video. If you haven't watched that video yet, you should definitely pay attention to this part. So what exactly is this Bitcoin's triple breakout? The first breakout, last week, Bitcoin was able to break this $10,000 long-term market structure level. This $10,000 level has always been a pretty important level to watch for many Bitcoin investors. No matter if they use it as a support or as a resistance or even just a psychological level on the price, it is a pretty meaningful level that a lot of people are watching. So breaking out of this $10,000 level is a huge deal for Bitcoin, and it will definitely grab a lot of more momentum traders' attention. The second breakout, Bitcoin has formed this long-term giant ascending triangle pattern since 2017. We can clearly see that for the past 3 years, Bitcoin has been trading within this pattern nicely, tested both upper bound and the lower bounds of this pattern a couple of times but all failed. However, last week, Bitcoin successfully had a strong breakout out of this long-term 3-year triangle pattern and heading to the upside. This is a very bullish signal for Bitcoin, especially this is the pattern that many institutional investors are watching as well. And the third breakout is this inverse head and shoulder pattern breakout. In technical analysis, an inverse head and shoulder pattern is considered one of the most bullish trend reversal patterns. Last week, Bitcoin was able to break out from this inverse head and shoulder pattern and close above this $10,000 level neckline. If we combine these three technical analysis charts together, we can clearly see that last week's breakout is an extremely significant bullish move for Bitcoin. On top of that, we just had an important follow-through week right after the strong breakout. This is exactly what you want to see right after a breakout move in any chart. So apart from the first two fundamental analysis on Bitcoin, the pure technical analysis is also suggesting us that Bitcoin is ready for the next bull run. Alright, there you have it. The top 3 reasons why I am extremely bullish on Bitcoin for the next 2 years, and I strongly believe a major Bitcoin bull run is about to start. Of course, nothing is guaranteed in the financial market, and we definitely need to manage our risk as well. Bitcoin's volatility is still the highest among all the asset classes, so your position sizing is even more important than your entry price if you want to make money from Bitcoin. I see Bitcoin as a midterm asymmetric risk-reward bet for a small part of a well-diversified portfolio. My base case for Bitcoin for the next 2 years is 3 to 5x return from the current price. And my aggressive target for Bitcoin will be 10x return in 2 to 3 years. My game plan is very simple. I will keep Bitcoin as strictly 5% of my entire portfolio, and I will keep rebalancing it to maintain this 5% portion. I will avoid active trading of Bitcoin for the next 2 years. It's a pure midterm buy and hold strategy. I will not set a stop loss on my Bitcoin position, but I do set a time stop, which is 24 months. After 24 months, I will reassess the entire situation and decide if I will keep this Bitcoin position or cash out, take profit, or cut loss. Of course, it's always better for you to design your own game plan that suits your investing style and personality. But just remember, managing your position size properly is more important than timing the entries when it comes to investing in extremely volatile asset classes like Bitcoin. Alright, that will be the end of this video. If you're new to this channel, my name is Vic. I make videos every week to share some of my thoughts on what is going on in the financial market, and also what are the trade ideas or what investment opportunities that you should pay attention to in the market. If you're interested in the world of finance and the business and finding my videos have been valuable to you, please consider subscribing. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys soon.